Section 1, Static Heat. South Aurora, Sector 12, Nightfall. Rain in New Aurora didn't cleanse. It clung, made everything smell like fried circuits and old smoke. Steam hissed from manholes and sewer grates, mixing with the electric hum of a city that refused to die. Streetlights blinked like warning signs. Neon signs flickered above pawn shops, liquor stores, tattoo parlors, shrines to broken dreams. Marcos Reyes coasted his beat-up courier bike into an alley behind Fox's Ramen and Vape. He cut the engine and popped open his delivery bag. Still warm, smelled like synthetic chicken and soy broth sludge. Marcos was 20, maybe 21. Tall, lean, with the kind of wiry strength you got from years of dodging cops and climbing fire escapes. His hoodie was stitched over with faded patches, street crews, failed brands, dead causes. His eyes carried that South Aurora heat, watchful, quick, already calculating. He knocked on a back door, a security cam tilted toward him. Nothing. Marcos waited and waited until he heard the scream. A shriek, sharp, brief, then muffled grunts. A struggle. Marcos's fingers went to the multi-tool in his pocket, the only weapon he carried. He didn't hesitate, just kicked the door. It crashed open with a metal screech. Inside, a man lay bleeding on the floor, eyes wide in disbelief. Two figures in black urban tactical gear stood over him, masks hissing, weapons raised. Tower enforcers. One turned toward Marcos. "You shouldn't be here." Marcos moved. He didn't think, just grabbed the food bag and hurled it. It exploded against the wall, soup flying. Then he ran. Sector 12, rooftops. Marcos darted through the city's backbones. Fire escapes, duck bridges, utility ladders. He'd run this route since he was a kid, jumping roofs while other kids played video games. Not for fun, for survival. Below, the sirens lit up. Blue and red drowned the alleyways. Drones lifted off from the tower precinct across the viaduct, their rotors chopping through the rain. Marcos didn't stop until he reached the roof of an old tenement building. Panting, soaked, pulse howling. He reached into his pocket and realized something was there. Not his tool, not his burner, another phone. He hadn't seen it in the scuffle. Someone, the dying man, had slipped it into his hoodie. It was old, heavy, military casing. On the back, an etched insignia, a burning phoenix coiled in an Ouroboros. Marcos's thumb brushed over it, a strange tingle behind his eyes. The screen came alive, static. Then a voice. "If this reaches you, don't trust the news, don't trust the precincts. They've taken the city. Find Kenner, Sector 9, pawn shop behind the old rail line. The signal needs you." Marcos blinked. The voice was female, unfamiliar, but calm, precise, confident. The signal? That name he knew. Whispers in the city, pirate broadcasts, blackout protests, tagged murals that vanished overnight. The phone's screen died, battery gone, no SIM, no signal trace, no logo. He pocketed it and stood on the rooftop, looking out over the sprawl of South Aurora. Tower spotlights blinked in the fog. A chopper passed overhead. The city buzzed, unaware. Sector 9, Kenner's buy and barter. The next morning, Marcos stood in front of a pawn shop, so nondescript it seemed invisible. The steel shutters were halfway up. A faded open sign flickered behind bulletproof glass. Inside, clutter choked the air. Radios, shotguns, hoverboard parts, antique crap nobody wanted. A mounted camera watched the door. Behind the counter sat a man in a tattered bomber jacket. His beard was white and rough. His eyes, one cybernetic, the other weary. He cleaned a long-barreled pistol like it was therapy. Marcos stepped in, didn't speak. The man looked up. "You're late," he said. Marcos squinted. "You know me?" "I know your bloodline." The man's voice had the rhythm of old gravel. "You're Reyes, one of Emilio's boys." Marcos flinched at the name. "My father died in a warehouse fire," he muttered. "That's what the death record says." "Yeah?" Kenner leaned forward. "And you believe everything the city tells you?" Marcos looked down, fingers curled tighter around the phone. "I was told to find you. Some Voice. On this. He slid the burner across the counter. Kenner didn't touch it, just stared, then said quietly, "That's her. Liana Vega." Marcos raised an eyebrow. "She's real?" "She was once," Kenner said. "Used to be a city councilwoman. Smart, sharp, too clean for tower politics. Started leaking documents through pirate waves. Thought she could wake the city. Now she's a ghost." Marcos swallowed. "So what's she want with me?" Kenner finally picked up the phone. Examined the etched phoenix. His expression darkened. "That symbol, it ain't just art. It's history. Before the tower came to power, there were peacekeepers in this city. Not badge-wearing punks, not mercs. They were something else. We called them wardens." Marcos frowned. "Like vigilantes?" "No," Kenner said. "More like believers. We had rules. We didn't kill. We didn't rule. We protected the people who didn't make the news. We used what was left of the echo." Marcos's brows tightened. "Echo?" Kenner tapped his temple. "City's got a hum. Underneath the traffic, the ads, the noise. A rhythm. Once you heard it, you could feel danger coming before it came. Talk to someone and know if they were lying. You learned to listen. Your father? He was the last warden who truly heard it." Marcos stood still. A storm had begun inside him. A growing sense that the cracks in the pavement had stories, that every camera was a threat, that the lies had weight. "Why'd they kill him?" he asked. "Because he got close. To the truth. To Vega. To what the tower really is." Kenner reached under the counter, pulled out a lockbox, opened it. Inside was a small metal device, a data drive shaped like a key. Kenner held it up. "Your father wanted you to have this. Said you might find your way back." Marcos took it. Felt heavier than it looked. Meanwhile, Tower HQ, North Aurora. In a soundproof room lit by blood-red monitors, Darius Vane stood motionless. He was a figure of silence, riot gear black as coal, his face masked by a gas-fed respirator, a relic from urban crackdown units that no longer had names. His voice when he spoke was low, filtered, and terrible. "Run the trace again," he ordered. A technician gulped. "Sector 9. Ping originated from a modified warden burner. We're locking signal range. Could be a mistake." Vane stepped forward. The tech shut up. "Dispatch dark watch period. Street sweep only. No sirens. Burn every signal tower between sectors 9 and 10. "Yes, sir." Vane turned toward the monitors. A city map bloomed with digital veins, red squares marking non-compliant zones. "Her voice was heard," he said quietly. "That means she's not dead. Not yet." He placed a gloved hand over the image of Sector 9, whispered, "Light must be snuffed where it sparks." Act 1. A Spark in the Gutter. Section 2. The Echo Stirs. Sector 9. The Pawn Shop Basement, midnight. Marcos stood shirtless beneath a hanging light bulb, sweat rolling down his spine as Kenner watched him like a hawk. The air down here reeked of oil, rust, and memory. Cracked concrete walls bore symbols Marcos didn't recognize. Half tag, half scripture. In one corner, a chalkboard cluttered with old city maps and protest leaflets. In another, a locked cabinet labeled relics. "You flinched," Kenner said, voice sharp as broken glass. Marcos unclenched his fists. "You threw a blade at my head. And you ducked late." Kenner walked over, retrieved the training knife. "Your eyes are too slow. You're still looking at the world instead of feeling it." Marcos paced, frustrated. "What the hell does that even mean?" Kenner stopped. He pointed to the floor. "You see that?" Marcos glanced down. "A crack." "Feel it." Marcos furrowed his brow. "Close your eyes." Marcos obeyed. Kenner's voice lowered. "The city's alive, Reyes, beneath the lights and lies. Everything moves with rhythm, trash trucks, foot patrols, train lines, surveillance drones. Every breath you take is part of the hum. Wardens knew how to sync with that. We didn't need clairvoyance. We had pattern recognition. We listened." Marcos stayed still. He tried. He heard the buzz of power lines, the distant siren echoing somewhere past Sector 10. He felt the flicker of fluorescent bulbs, the faint tremor of an underground tram passing 3 blocks away, and somewhere, barely there, a pulse, a low rhythmic thump beneath it all, like the city's mechanical heartbeat. I feel something. Kenner gave a rare nod. That's the echo. Marcos opened his eyes, exhaling. Kenner walked back to the maps. Your father could track a hit squad by scent and sound. He once sensed a drone sniper half a mile off just by noticing which pigeons weren't flying. The tower feared him. Marcos leaned against the wall, thinking. So what happened to him? Kenner didn't answer right away. He pulled a photo from a drawer, a black and white still of 3 people. Emilio Reyes, young and proud. Liana Vega beside him, mid-speech, and Ben, looking 10 years younger. We were close to something big, back when Vega still had allies. Emilio intercepted a ledger, a full archive of the tower's hush fund, hit contracts, bribed precincts, proof they were laundering billions through shell charities and tech startups. What happened? They found us. Kenner's tone darkened. Took Emilio, tried to break him, thought he'd sold out Vega. He didn't. So they burned him alive in the Camden district riots and blamed it on the protesters. Marcos stared at the photo, then at the map. So, what now? Kenner opened a drawer and tossed Marcos a comlink. You don't have to be a warden, but if you're going to carry your father's name, don't do it walking backward. Sector 3, strip line crossing, late morning. Elsewhere, under an overpass strung with hacked LED billboards, a lowrider purred like a lion in a cage. Chrome-plated, candy red, suicide doors open. Flames licked the hood. Inside, dice hanging from the rear view, a holstered sidearm taped under the dash, and a subwoofer that made pigeons scatter 2 blocks away. This was Millie, half car, half legend. Behind the wheel lounged Juan Shot Morales, boot on the dash, shades down, toothpick between his teeth. Cuban link chain, gold tooth glint, vibes of a man who'd survived the city not by shooting first, but by never getting shot. His comm buzzed. Shot, it's Kenner. Juan's grin faded. Damn, you still breathing, old man? I've got a job. Real dirty. The kind you used to take before you started smuggling liquor to Neo Santa. Oi, I'm strictly lifestyle now. No kill missions, no missing persons, no data drops unless it's crypto. This one's different. You're picking up a kid. Juan exhaled. That all? Kenner's tone turned grim. And the tower's looking for him. He's carrying a code that could crash their surveillance grid. You'll need to smuggle him across our Sector 7. You in? Juan didn't hesitate. Text the coordinates. Sector 9, alley behind Kenner's shop. Marcos waited beside a busted vending machine, backpack slung over one shoulder. In it, the burner phone, the Echo drive, and a small warden badge Kenner had once worn like a dog tag. He saw the car before he heard it. Millie glided around the corner like a ghost with rims. Juan leaned out the window. You Reyes? Yeah. Get in. Don't touch the seats. Marcos climbed in. You're Morales? Call me Shot, and don't kick my subwoofer. They peeled off down the alley, music thumping low. Marcos eyed the fuzzy dice. You used to work with Kenner? Kenner used to be sane, Juan muttered. Now he babysits conspiracy babies and thinks we're still in 2040. Still, man saved my ass once. Blew up a drone with a spoon. Marcos chuckled. I'm supposed to trust you. Juan grinned. Trust? Nah. But I get people places. You want to live past sundown? You stay in the car when I say stay in the car. As they hit the main line into Sector 7, the car passed through a checkpoint. Tower drones scanned the plate. Juan's dashboard glitched briefly, then cleared. Forgery holds, he said proudly. Paid top crypto for that software. Works 9 out of 10. Suddenly, red flash. Sirens. Times. Shit, Marcos muttered. Welcome to your first tower chase, baby. Sector 7, industrial slums 10 minutes later. Drones swarmed in. 3 hover bikes flanked the lowrider, enforcers in black masks ready to box them in. Juan hit a switch on his dash, and the trunk popped open. Two small charges fired from concealed ports. Flashbang grenades. The explosion turned the block into a strobe-lit nightmare. Juan swerved into a side tunnel, tires screaming. Sparks flew as they scraped a wall, then burst out the other side near the drainage canals. Marcos gripped the seat. Are you insane? I prefer the term resourcefully impulsive. The last drone chased them toward an underpass. Marcos acted. He rolled down the window, pulled a tool from his pack, one of his father's old scramblers, and lobbed it behind them. The drone sparked, spun out, crashed into a sewer pipe. Juan blinked. Okay, that was slick. Marcos breathed hard, adrenaline still coursing. They slowed under the 74th Street overpass, where Kenner's contact was waiting, an older woman in a motorcycle helmet and riot gear, arms crossed. Her bike roared behind her like a beast on a chain. Rosa, Juan called out, got your cargo? She looked at Marcos, nodded. Come with me if you want to see Vega. Marcos hesitated, looked back at Juan. You coming? Juan scoffed. No, kid. I do speed, not secrets. You go do your rebel shenanigans. Marcos nodded, slung the backpack on. Rosa revved the bike. Marcos climbed on behind her. No words needed. They took off into the shadows. Tower HQ, observation deck. Darius Vane watched the footage from Sector 7. No audio, just camera angles. The lowrider, the escape, the device thrown from the car. He paused on Marcos's face, zoomed, then turned to his lieutenant. That's Reyes. Bloodline confirmed. Echo affinity signs present. What's the move? Vane didn't answer. He simply looked out the glass wall over the city, lights like dying stars. Then he whispered more to himself than anyone. Her fire still spreads. Act 1. A spark in the gutter. Section 3. Ashes of the signal. Sector 4. The drowned theater. They rode through crumbling avenues where even the drones didn't patrol. Streets eaten by time and runoff, buildings hollowed like corpses. Rosa's bike whispered over the cracked concrete until they reached the husk of a domed structure once called the Aurora Grand, a monument to a time when the city sang instead of screamed. Now it was tagged top to bottom with rebel marks, phoenixes, broken cameras, bleeding tower symbols. The marquee above read in peeling letters, all light burns, keep watching. Rosa parked beneath the ruined awning. She handed Marcos a compact headset. You'll want this, she said. Inside, frequencies bounce. Screws with your head. Marcos adjusted it, blinking as static cleared from his inner ear. Rosa pushed open a rusting service door and led him down a pitch-dark corridor that smelled of mold, damp earth, and scorched wiring. They entered the theater proper. Rows of collapsed seats, a grand screen, torn and covered in faded blood. But at the center of the orchestra pit stood a patchwork server rig glowing faint blue, hardwired into makeshift generators, cooling fans whirring like insects, and beside it, a woman. Her presence was more commanding than any title. Tall, dusky-skinned, wrapped in a long coat stitched with symbols Marcos couldn't read. Half her head shaved, the other side dyed silver black. A faint scar curved down from her right temple. Liana Vega. She turned, studied him without blinking. Marcos Reyes, she said, like it wasn't a question. Marcos swallowed. You're real. So are you, she said. That's becoming rare. Rosa peeled away toward a side terminal. Vega stepped down from the platform, her boots soft against the warped wood floor. You have the echo key? Marcos pulled the small device from his pocket, held it up. She didn't take it. Do you know what's on that drive? She asked. No. Then you shouldn't hold it like it's just metal. Marcos looked down at the drive. Kenner said it has records. His training. My dad's voice. Vega smiled, though it was sorrowful. It holds more than that. It holds memories. Truth the tower erased. It holds footage of the day they took your father. And more. Plans, names, city schematics. What's left of our strategy. He encoded it before they got to him. Marcos hesitated. Why me? Because blood carries echoes, she said softly. Your father was one of the last true wardens. When he died, we didn't just lose a man. We lost clarity, compass. If his son can hear the hum, you're more than just a name. You're a frequency. Marcos took a shaky breath. I don't want to be a symbol. You think any of us did? She turned, walking back to the server stack. Marcos followed. How do you survive out here? We don't, she replied. We resist. Different math. She gestured to a screen displaying scattered zones of encrypted uplinks. Only 2 were green. Years ago, there were 12 signals. Pirate towers, underground nets, people spreading truth. The tower has killed 10 of them. Only ours and the one in Sector 13 remain. Marcos stared. And they're coming for you next. Vega nodded. That's why we needed the drive. Suddenly, a harsh crack split the air. Rosa cursed from the side terminal. Tracer ping just hit the perimeter. Marcos turned sharply. They found us? No, Rosa said grimly. They let us think they hadn't. Outside, rooftop perimeter. Drones circled. Unmarked vans slid into alleys. Figures in black armor with red visors moved in silence. Dark watch. Towers cleanup crew. No arrests, no reports. Just silence, fire, and graves with no names. Inside the theater, the server screamed. Power surged, lights stuttered. Vega barked orders to Rosa, who was typing furiously into the firewall console. Marcos stood frozen. The hum beneath his feet, the echo, had shifted. Faster now, like panic, like thunder trying not to fall. Marcos, Vega shouted. The drive! Slot it! He ran to the core rig, found the port and shoved the drive in. The server whirred. Lights snapped green. Data began to pour in. Outside, the walls shuddered. A breaching charge cracked the lobby doors inward. They're in, Rosa shouted. 5 minutes! Vega turned to Marcos. We're not getting out of this clean, but you can. She handed him a black satchel. Inside the drive, now downloaded and copied, a flare gun and a data-blind burner, encrypted off-grid. You take this to Kenner, she said, voice iron. Sector 6. He knows where the last relay is. Marcos shook his head. No, I'm not leaving you here. You're not, Rosa said. We're leaving you. She pulled a detonator from her belt. Fail-safe. Marcos's eyes widened. Vega stepped forward, her hand on his shoulder, firm. I know you don't want to be a symbol, she said, so be a witness. Then she turned him to a rusted service stair. Go, now! Marcos ran. Stairwell, fire exit, rear access tunnel. Marcos moved fast, sprinting down narrow, flooded corridors. His heart pounded, his breath ragged. Then, boom! The ground shook. Heat surged behind him. The ceiling cracked. Dust and ash rained down like black snow. He fell once, rolled hard, cut his arm. Didn't stop. He didn't look back. Didn't dare. Sector 6, dawn. Marcos stood atop a warehouse roof as the sun broke through the toxic haze. The skyline bled gold and ash. Smoke curled where the Aurora Grand had been. He held the satchel in both hands, trembling. Behind him, a door creaked open. Kenner stepped out, rifle over one shoulder. Marcos turned, didn't speak. Kenner looked at the smoke, then back at Marcos. She gave it to you, didn't she? Marcos nodded. They're gone. Kenner didn't flinch, just walked forward and placed a hand on Marcos's shoulder. Then it's begun. Tower HQ, below-ground surveillance lab. Vane watched the explosion footage again. He paused on the image of Marcos running from the fire. Zoomed in. His lieutenant approached. We found no bodies, no survivors, but Reyes escaped with the data. Vane's voice was smooth and terrible. Good. The lieutenant blinked. Sir? Vane turned slowly. Let him run. Let him believe he's winning. Light burns brightest right before the oil runs out. He turned back to the screen. I want the city to watch him rise. Pause, then we'll make them watch him fall. Act 2, heat on the pavement. Section 1, smoke lessons. Sector 6, Kenner's rooftop, daybreak. The skyline still smoldered. What remained of the Aurora Grand Theater was little more than a plume of oily smoke curling over Sector 4. Marcos Reyes sat cross-legged beneath a power relay tower, sweat sticking his shirt to his back, eyes closed. Again, Kenner barked from behind him. Marcos exhaled, focused. Around him, the rooftop vibrated faintly, the wind tugging a loose antenna cable, the creak of rusted vents, the soft tick of a slowing fan. Beneath it all, the city's pulse, the echo point. A siren passed blocks away, distant, but Marcos tracked it. A chopper overhead, civil patrol, low engine, non-lethal unit. He could hear the shift in weight between the buildings, the tremble of surveillance drones that hadn't yet emerged into view. He opened his eyes. Echo came from east, Marcos said. Probable patrol passing Central Commerce. Civil model, not Dark Watch. Kenner nodded. You're starting to hear it. Took your father a year. You? 2 weeks. Marcos looked down. It's not a gift. I feel like it's always been there. Just waiting. Kenner lit a cigarette, stepping over a pile of worn training mats. Your father used to say that some people are born with a wire in their brain that vibrates at the same frequency as pain. That's what makes you a warden. Marcos stood. So what now? We upload the Echo Drive? Not yet, Kenner said. We're still off-grid. Last of the repeater towers went dark last month, but there's one place we can patch the signal back in. He pointed to a marked zone on an old paper map pinned to the wall behind him. Tower Node 41. Marcos frowned. Isn't that suicide? Not if we hit it quiet. Kenner walked over to a heavy duffel and pulled out blueprints. Node 41 sits under the old tram line, 3 blocks east of the core wall. It's buried beneath a fake maintenance substation. No signs, no lights. Most tower staff don't even know it's there. It's where they reroute all public comms for predictive filtering. If we breach that server and inject the echo file, the city hears Vega's message, Marcos finished. All of it. Kenner nodded. But we'll need help. Sector 3, Morales Garage, midnight. Tires screeched into a shuttered warehouse painted with dragon graffiti. Inside, Millie glinted like a temple relic. Juan shot Morales crouched over her open hood, welding goggles on, half-eaten empanada sitting on the fender. Still alive, he muttered, voice sleepy with satisfaction, and still beautiful. Behind him, Kenner and Marcos stepped out of the shadows. Juan didn't flinch. Y'all bring dinner or bullets? Kenner tossed him a wrap sandwich. Both. Juan stood, popped his goggles up, looked Marcos over. You've got the guy who survived a rebel suicide mission look. Marcos smirked faintly. You've got the guy who charges triple after one favor look. Juan laughed. Takes money to ride in style, baby. Kenner unfolded the blueprints. We need your car and your nerves. Juan squinted. Node 41? You serious? That's like driving into the devil's bathroom. Marcos stepped forward. It's the only uplink left. We hit it. We spread Vega's voice. Let the city see the tower's blood trail. Juan leaned on Millie. All right, I'll bite, but we don't go in guns blazing. We do it my way. Fast, smart, and noisy only when we choose. Kenner nodded. We've got one shot. We do this. We light the flame. We fail, and we're ghosts. Sector 5, the crossing, pre-dawn. Millie rolled through narrow tunnels beneath the city, sewer arteries repurposed into smuggler routes. Lights flickered overhead as Juan narrated their path. Tunnel 5 leads us to the maintenance lift under the substation. They expect foot traffic from Sector 4, not wheels. That buys us seconds. Marcos sat in the back seat, adjusting a repurposed drone jammer strapped to his chest. His heart was pounding, but he kept his face still. Kenner rode shotgun. A compact rifle in his lap, his old warden badge hung around his neck like a cursed charm. They approached a sealed blast door. Juan pulled the brake. We go loud from here. Kenner turned to Marcos. You sure you're ready? Marcos nodded once. No fear, Kenner said. Not none, Marcos replied. Just forward. Tower Node 41, maintenance substation interior. Marcos moved first, crouched low, jammer humming. The walls were silent, concrete, unmarked. A single retinal scanner blinked beside a rusted door. Kenner held up a copied lens. "It'll fool the system for 90 seconds, he said. "Then hell wakes up." They slid inside. The room pulsed with circuitry, wires like arteries, banks of servers lining walls like crypts, central terminal locked behind reinforced glass. Marcos crossed to the panel, slotted in the echo drive. The moment it connected, screens lit up. Footage bloomed across them. Vega's final broadcast, Emilio Reyes' execution files, shadow documents with code names like Operation Silence, The Hollow Vote, Ghost Education Initiative. Marcos stared as his father's voice filled the space. "The tower isn't the system. It's a parasite that learned how to control the lights. You want to take back your city? Burn the switchboard." Kenner's eyes closed. For just a second, something like peace passed over him. Juan from the hallway. "Guys, we got company." Exterior, Node 41 entry point. Darkwatch had found them. 2 vans, 6 operatives. No sirens, just death. Juan slammed the blast door shut behind him. "They're cutting power to the exit. We've got maybe 90 seconds. Marcos turned from the terminal. "Upload's not done yet." "Then we fight until it is," Kenner said. He unshouldered his rifle, dropped to one knee behind a generator casing. Juan pulled twin pistols from his vest and cracked his neck. Marcos stayed by the drive, watching the percentage climb. 68%, 70%, 74%. Gunfire burst down the corridor. Sparks sprayed. Kenner fired short, surgical bursts, took one down. Juan darted across the hallway, grinning like a devil, sliding under return fire and tagging another in the knee. The server rig sparked, 81%, 83%. A grenade clinked into the room. Marcos moved without thinking, grabbed it, heaved it down the side tunnel. Boom. 95%, 98%, 99%, 100%. The lights blinked blue. The upload was live. Citywide data towers across New Aurora received the update. Every abandoned terminal, hacked smart screen, defunct billboard, all flickered on. And Vega's voice filled the streets. "They told you silence was peace. They told you fear was safety. But I tell you, this city belongs to you. Not the suits, not the enforcers, not the tower. Escape, substation tunnel." "Time to vanish," Juan shouted. They moved fast, back through the breach point, with Millie waiting like a loyal dog. But Darkwatch was closing in. 2 operatives ahead. 1 fired. Kenner shoved Marcos aside and took the bullet. Marcos screamed, dropped to catch him. Blood, fast and dark. Kenner grabbed Marcos's shirt, eyes fierce. "You listen. You keep listening. You don't stop till the tower's on its knees." Marcos clutched his hand. "You're coming with me." But Kenner only smiled. "No, I'm going home." He reached up, pressed the old warden badge into Marcos's palm. Then he was gone. Juan pulled Marcos away. "Come on, kid. This ain't where he'd want you to die." They roared off into the dark. Behind them, Node 41 went up in flames. Across New Aurora, hours later, screens everywhere, glitchy terminals and laundromats, subway signs, hacked billboards, now pulsed with the echo signal. Vega's broadcast looped with encrypted subtitles. Data leaked like blood across the city net. The tower scrambled, their PR team spun. Enforcers doubled patrols, but it was too late. The fire was lit. Tower HQ, operations chamber. Vane stood before a bank of monitors, footage of protests, burning police cars, rebel tags. Marcos Reyes' face appeared across 100 channels, the warden badge visible on his chest. The city had a new symbol, a rebel, a sun, a fuse. Vane stared. "Let the boy run," he said. "Let him breathe hope into their lungs." He stepped forward, voice cold. "Then we cut it out. Act 2, Heat on the Pavement. Section 2, King of No Streets. Sector 11, Underground Vaults, the Ribcage. Old New Aurora had been built over itself like a scar healing wrong. Beneath the high-rises and failed megaprojects were whole other cities. Subway tunnels turned crypts, industrial arteries abandoned after the AI flood riots. The rebels called this space the rib cage because it held the guts of something once alive. Marcos Reyes walked between rusted columns, pulse echoing louder than his footsteps. He wasn't alone. Graffiti pulsed under black light. Warden symbols. Burn the tower. Vega lives. Murals of Kenner, stylized like a saint. Eyes lit with circuitry, one hand raised, the other shattered. Around him, silent figures stood watch. Rebels, runners, signal hijackers, ex-cops, medics. They didn't cheer when they saw him. They knelt. Marcos froze. A woman with silver braids stepped forward, removing a half-mask from her face. Pierced brow, sharp eyes. "You're Reyes," she said, like she was naming a ghost. Kenner's final call reached all active nodes. "You uploaded the Ember." "I didn't do it alone." "You did it carrying his badge. That makes you Warden Prime." Marcos blinked. "What?" The badge wasn't just a symbol. It was linked to the old command structure. Biometric access, code permissions. Every open cell just got synced to your echo signature. "You're not a soldier anymore." She stepped closer. "You're a general." Marcos looked down at the badge, its metal dark with grime, its lines glowing faintly. He thought of Kenner, of Vega, of his father burning behind the lies. He didn't want this, but he couldn't say no, not after all that. Sector 5, Juan Morales' garage. Juan sat in a ripped-up chair, drinking from a cracked ceramic mug. Millie was parked in the background, hood up, still purring as diagnostics ran through her AI core. He was watching the news. It showed his own damn car, in slow motion, blasting through a dark watch barricade. One shot had a clear freeze frame of him yelling, pistol raised. "I look hot in that frame," he muttered to himself. Then the screen fuzzed, glitched. A new message blinked through. "Private uplink. Rika." Juan leaned forward, frowned. Then he tapped in a code. The comm sprang to life, projecting a shaky hologram of a woman in tower tactical armor. Helmet off, jaw cut sharp, hair tied back. "Juan," she said. His shoulders dropped. "God damn it, Rika." Lieutenant Rika Cruz, ex-lover, ex-tower enforcer. Still occasionally the one person who could make Juan shut the hell up. "I told you," she said, voice tired. "Don't get involved with rebels." "I didn't," he lied. "They just kept being in the way of my business." "You breached Node 41. You're part of a federal kill list. You're now classified as internal terrorism with disruptive narrative impact." Juan took a long sip from the mug. "Catchy," she sighed. "This isn't a game. Vane is watching that Reyes kid like he's the second coming of the plague. They're planning something. I can't stop it. I barely dodged a red tag myself just for talking to you." Juan stared at her, then smiled faintly. "Why'd you call?" She didn't answer. He leaned forward. "You still believe in what's right?" "I believe in what hurts the least." Juan cut the feed, then stood, grabbed his jacket, holstered both pistols. He walked to Millie, tapped her hood twice. "Gear up, girl. We got a war to complicate." Sector 11, the Ribcage Strategy Room. Marcos sat across from a hollow map of the city. The cell leaders stood around him, street tacticians, rogue netrunners, medics, and ex-military. They watched him for answers. "We have the people's ear now," said the woman with braids. Her name was Nira. They saw the broadcast. The city's still trying to explain it away, but something cracked. Marcos nodded. "We strike the echo again. Not just one node, 3. A hacker, known only as Ghost Boy, leaned over the terminal. "3's ambitious. Security doubles with every hit." "Then we don't do it like last time," Marcos said. "We hit and stay. Occupy it. Let the people see us not just sabotage, but stand." Nira raised an eyebrow. "You're talking old-school riot tactics." "No," Marcos said. "I'm talking echo walks." The room went quiet. Marcos turned to the map, pointed at 3 tower-controlled intersections known for surveillance output. "We set up speaker rigs, flash the badge, walk the street. Cameras don't blink. We make the tower see us coming. If they fire, it's on broadcast. If they retreat, the city sees weakness. Nira nodded. You're not bad at this, Reyes. Marcos just stared at the badge in his hand. I'm just angry. Meanwhile, Tower Central Ops, Deep Core. Darius Vane stood inside a sterile black chamber lit by liquid white projection walls. Around him hovered real-time surveillance data, facial recognition pings, and trending net activity. Every street mural of Marcos Reyes fed into this room. Every chant, tagged post, rogue video, logged, cataloged, evaluated for suppression rating. A voice spoke from behind a mirrored panel. Shall we neutralize the warden before the walk begins? Vane said nothing. He turned to one particular camera feed, a side shot of Marcos in mid-run from the Node 41 breach. He pointed to it. Let him march. Let him speak. Let the city chant his name. Then his voice dropped cold. But when he reaches the apex, cut the head from the crown. Sector 9, rooftop meet, dusk. Marcos waited under the glow of a repurposed solar lamp. Millie purred up the ramp like she never left. Juan stepped out, cool as ever. Marcos looked up. Heard you were laying low. Juan winked. I was. Then I got bored of watching the city fall apart without me. He tossed Marcos a small device, a portable jammer rigged for on-the-go uplink protection. Had some friends dig this up. You'll need it when the chanting starts. Marcos looked him over. You serious? You're back in? Juan nodded. But with rules, I don't carry martyrdom like a badge, all right? I'm here for chaos, not sainthood. Marcos smiled faintly. Good, 'cause we're about to walk into history, or a bullet. Juan slung an arm around his shoulders. Either way, I'm wearing the good boots. Act 2, Heat on the Pavement. Section 3, The Echo Walks, Sector 7, 2 blocks south of Core. Wall, midday heat pressed down like judgment. The street smelled of hot rubber and city sweat. Vendors had vanished, traffic rerouted. A silence spread across the cracked streets, not peaceful, expectant. From the mouth of a narrow alley, Marcos Reyes emerged. His hood was down. Warden badge hung from a chain over his chest. Eyes steady, jaw set. He wore a simple black jacket, boots scuffed from tunnels and fire, and beneath it, the echo jammer clicked with a green pulse, holding off tower trace for now. To his left, Nira, wearing body armor tagged with street insignia and a scarf of red and gold, the colors of the old Civic Union. To his right, Juan Morales, chewing gum, his pistols hidden beneath a stylized streetwear coat, strutting like this was just another Friday. Behind them, 3 dozen walkers, students, ex-cons, medics, kids in gas masks, all silent, all echo-linked, all watching. Ahead, the crossroads of Core, where 4 tower-controlled intersections merged in a surveillance flood zone. At each corner, hidden facial rec drones, crowd suppressors, automated pulse rifles perched on rooftops. And in the center, a podium dragged into place during the night, its speakers wrapped in copper wire and echo nodes. Marcos's broadcast stage, Sector 1, Surveillance Suite, Tower Core. Technicians watched every camera. Drones hovered unseen, ready to drop gas or gunfire. Behind mirrored glass, Darius Vane stood with arms behind his back. They really think they can walk into a kill box and preach, one analyst muttered. Vane said nothing. Just watch the boy. Crossroads, 12:01 p.m. Marcos stepped into the open. Every camera turned. Every drone read his face. The badge glinted in the sun. He climbed the podium. The speaker array lit up with a low hum. He took a breath and felt it. The echo point. So many sounds. The city held its breath. And then he spoke. You've been told this is peace, that we are rioters, that we are echoes of dead men. But we are the city's voice coming back to claim its name. His voice rang from rooftops and tunnels, across pirated frequencies, across rooftops where signal techs tuned into every available repeater. The tower told you safety means silence, but what have you gotten for obeying? No jobs, no rights, no truth, just filters, just drones, just curfews. Marcos stepped forward. But we remember, We remember Vega. We remember Kenner. We remember every name you tried to scrub from our walls. People emerged from windows, rooftops, fire escapes, phones out, eyes wide. In another world, it would have been a concert. In New Aurora, it was a resurrection. Marcos held up the badge. My father died wearing this. They called him a traitor, a radical. But he listened, and now so do we. He stepped back. The speaker flared. The badge's signal pulsed outward. Then silence. No sirens. No riot gas. Just the quiet terror of something changing. Until, clap, one person applauded, then another, then a building, then a block. Cheers rose like flame. Sector 1, Tower Ops. Vane watched and nodded. Release protocol shadow glass. Technicians froze. Sir, we haven't field tested. Execute. Crossroads. 1 minute later. The first sign was the shimmer. The air seemed to warp, as if glass bent around nothing. Marcos turned. His echo sense screamed. Cover! Too late. A black blur, armor-clad, silent, fast, dropped from a rooftop, tackling one of the signal guards to the ground. No sound, just blood. Another appeared, then another. Tower's secret unit. Echo nulls. Anti-resonance enforcers. Trained not to make noise. Trained to kill anyone who listened. Marcos drew a baton from his belt, struck one across the mask. Sparks. Juan fired from the podium, twin pistols barking, but they were outnumbered. A null took Nero by the throat, slammed her into a wall. Marcos leapt, drove his baton into the joint of its shoulder. It screamed electronically and fell. Then, a cold, familiar hiss. Darius Vane stepped into the clearing. No longer masked, just a man in tower black. Eyes hard, voice flat. Marcos Reyes. Marcos raised the badge. You're too late. Vane walked forward. On the contrary, you finally made yourself easy to find. He raised his hand. 3 nulls advanced. Marcos swung, caught one, ducked the second. Juan shot the third point blank, then turned and shouted, Time to evacuate. A flash grenade dropped near the crowd. Marcos felt the ripple, a tone that bent the echo, muted it, made him deaf to the city. Then he was tackled, thrown into a wall, stars behind his eyes. Vane stood over him. I wanted to see if you'd be better than your father, he said coldly. You're not. Marcos reached for the badge, but Vane stomped his wrist. Hard. Crack. Pain exploded through him. Then, a roar. Millie crashed into the plaza like a wrecking ball. Juan behind the wheel. Get in or die pretty. Marcos rolled, grabbing the badge with his good hand. Nera dragged herself to her feet, leapt into the back seat. Gunfire from rooftops. But Millie was armored, fast, and pissed. They tore down the block, drones behind them, sirens now screaming. The echo, even through pain, throbbed like a heartbeat gone mad. Sector 11, Safe House Tunnel. Marcos sat on the floor, clutching his wrist. Nera stitched her own leg with a metal rod between her teeth. Juan paced. That was a goddamn trap. Marcos stared at the badge, now cracked. It was also a spark. Juan stopped. What? Marcos looked up. They brought nulls. Vane himself. That means they're scared. Nera spat out the rod. Which means now, we really fight. Tower HQ, dark chamber. The lights dimmed. A hologram flickered on. A silhouette spoke. A voice with no face. Do we proceed to phase 2? Vane nodded. Yes. The rebels want a war? He turned. Let's show them what happens when we burn the streets first. Act 3, Embers and Kings. Section 1, Martial Silence. Sector 1, Dawn Broadcast, Tower Channel only. The screen went black for 3 full seconds. The longest silence on TowerNet in a decade. Then the symbol, a white tower rising through a circle of barbed light. A voice calm and confident. This is an emergency declaration from Mayor Cross. Effective immediately, all civilian movement is suspended. All unregistered communications will be considered acts of sedition. Then, martial law, enforcement, Darius Vane, duration, indefinite. The streets emptied before the sunrise could hit the pavement. Drones hovered low, their voices distorted with override commands. Curfews, containment, confiscation. New Aurora had stopped pretending. Sector 11, the ribcage, 5 hours later. Marcos Reyes leaned over a cracked slab of concrete as Ghost Boy adjusted the sling on his shattered wrist. The badge, split but still transmitting, lay beside him on the table, glowing like a heartbeat under pressure. "You're Markoski, he didn't take your whole hand," Ghost Boy muttered, applying a patch of synthetic skin. Marcos winced. "Still got my trigger finger." "Whoop-de-doo, Sheriff." Across the chamber, Nira studied tactical readouts. Her limp barely slowed. Juan paced near the table, his coat hanging open, one pistol tucked into his waistband like a promise. Marcos looked up. He's not going to wait. Vane's not like Cross. He's not interested in ruling. He wants to erase. Nira tapped the map. "Then we strike first." Marcos shook his head. "Not yet. If we hit blind, we lose what little we've built." Ghost Boy piped up. "We don't hit, we show." Everyone turned to him. He blinked. "I mean, if Vane wants silence, we give him noise. Not weapons, witnesses. We pull a full rebellion flash. No communications. Just people in the streets, everywhere at once. No symbols, no chants. Just presence." Juan grinned. "Like a ghost parade." Nira narrowed her eyes. "You think that'll stop null units?" Marcos slowly smiled. "No, but it'll give us cover to do what matters." He pulled out a rusted data drive. "My father left a key, not just to the signal, to the tower itself." Ghost Boy blinked. "You're saying a back door?" Marcos nodded. "Kenner told me once, the city was never meant to be run by the tower. There's a buried failsafe, deep in the foundation code, something that predates the override systems. The spine." Juan laughed. "That's just a legend." Marcos looked him dead in the eye. "My father built part of it. Sector 2, Vane's private suite." The room was silent except for the low thrum of his respirator and the gentle tick of relays switching data between walls. Darius Vane stood before a mirrored wall. Behind the glass, a row of bodies in cryosuspension. Rebels. Leaders. Names wiped from records. His reflection stared back, unmasked. A man with graying temples and fire behind his eyes. He opened a drawer, pulled out a small chip. Reyes code black. An old relic. He plugged it into the mirror wall. A feed bloomed. A younger Emilio Reyes. Archive footage. You can't control people forever. Not by deleting names. Not by cutting tongues. The truth has a shape. It grows back. Vane watched it with quiet fury, then spoke aloud as if to the ghost. "You died believing in echoes. I will live by silencing them." He turned to his aide. "Move all units to the spine perimeter. Sector 10, storm drain access." Marcos, Juan, Nira, and Ghost Boy descended through a tunnel so narrow only one person could move at a time. The walls were slick with decades of dust and water damage, the markings along the pipes in a language that had long since vanished from city contracts. At the end, a sealed panel. No digital locks, just a rotating dial and a deep iron bolt. Marcos knelt. He took the broken warden badge, slotted it into the center socket. It hissed, turned green. The door unsealed. They entered the spine. Spine core, unknown depth. They stepped into an underground chamber untouched by surveillance. The walls were smooth, curved, polished like bone. Lights flickered to life in warm tones. Orange and gold. No cameras. No warnings. Just machinery breathing like it never forgot how. Ghost Boy's eyes widened. "No one's ever documented this." Nira raised her weapon. "Feels like it remembers us." At the center stood a pedestal, a circular interface, ancient in design, projecting a rotating city map. Marcos stepped forward. The interface pulsed, reacting to his badge, his echo. A voice, artificial but gentle, spoke from the ceiling. Reyes DNA confirmed. Warden access unlocked. Welcome to New Aurora's Central Civic Core. Would you like to restore municipal sovereignty? Everyone froze. Juan blinked. You what now? Marcos stared, then nodded once. Yes. The system whirred. Codes pulsed across the walls. Screens ignited. Buried districts mapped themselves anew. Surveillance arrays rerouted. Enforcer comms scrambled. Citizen IDs validated from ancient backups. The city was awakening. Tower HQ, panic systems dropped offline. Uplink nodes rerouted. Facial ID crashed. Enforcement commands returned denied. The map flickered in Vane's chamber. A single phrase repeating, spine integrity restored, civil control rerouted. Vane stared, then screamed, Find him! Rooftops, all sectors. Screens long dead blinked to life, and the city heard Emilio Reyes speak. If you're hearing this, it means the city has been given back to you. The tower is a parasite. You are the blood it feeds on. It's time to starve it out. You don't need guns, you need presence. You don't need orders, you need truth. And then, the final line. My son will walk where I fell. Follow him. Act 3, Embers and Kings. Section 2, Thorns and Concrete. Sector 3, midday, 3 hours after the broadcast. New Aurora was alive in a way it hadn't been in a generation. Not screaming, not rioting, moving. People filled the streets, silent, steady. Elderly women dragging chairs to intersections and just sitting. Street artists climbing scaffolds and spraying murals of Liana Vega, Kenner, and of Darius Vane, cracking. No signs, no chance, just defiance. And above it all, tower screens flickering between propaganda and a message hard-coded from the spine. You own the streets, you just forgot how to walk. Sector 1, Tower Core, Underground War Room. Chaos. Encrypted feeds failed. Riot teams blind. Orders looped, denied, bounced. Only the null units still obeyed. But they couldn't be everywhere. In vain, he stood perfectly still, staring at the frozen image of Emilio Reyes on the glass. Behind him, Rika Cruz approached, her helmet under her arm. You've lost public control. Vane didn't turn. You think I care about crowds? You don't have enough operatives to hold half the sectors. You're one man trying to put out a firestorm with bullets. Wrong, Vane said. I'm the man who built the matches. She hesitated. I read the Reyes files. You didn't just chase him. You knew him, didn't you? Vane finally turned. Emilio Reyes was the only person I ever respected. He believed in something impossible. I tried to show him the truth. That control is compassion. That freedom is just the license to bleed. But he wouldn't yield. And his son? Vane's eyes narrowed. His son is a lie, a ghost story with a face. Rika stepped closer. Then why are you so afraid of him? He said nothing, but she saw it in his silence. Not fear. Obsession. Sector 11. The rib cage. Marcos stood before an ancient jury-rigged console glowing with power. The system pulsed like a heartbeat. His father's legacy, mapped in code and old steel. Ghostboy tapped through the uplink relays, sweat beading on his brow. You sure you want to do this? Marcos nodded. If I access the old footage logs from the spine, I can see what really happened the night he died. The version they didn't scrub. Juan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Truth can't be undone, hermano. Marcos inserted the badge. The console lit up with time-stamped footage. Grainy, corrupted. He found it. Camden District Riot, October 3rd, 2049. Smoke, gunfire, protesters screaming. But what the tower had called an accidental death in a building fire, this was no accident. Marcos's eyes widened. Emilio wasn't burned in a riot. He was captured, chained, delivered to a tower facility. And then Darius Vane walked into the frame, alone, mask off. Marcos watched the unfiltered audio play. Vane, give me the signal keys. You'll live. Emilio, you already killed the city, Darius. You just wanted to whisper your name. Vane, I could have followed you. I believed in you. Emilio, then you should have listened. Vane, I did, and that's why you'll burn. Marcos watched his father strapped to a chair, and Vane, unblinking, flipped the switch himself. No trial, no riot, just execution. Ghost Boy stepped back. We need to send this now. Marcos shook his head. No. Juan raised an eyebrow. No? Marcos stared at the screen. We don't send it. We play it live. Sector 4, Civic Bridge, Public Square, 2 hours later. A crowd already stood waiting. Old terminals rebooted. Screens arranged like altars. And then the video began. Across all sectors, the people watched their beloved traitor murdered in cold silence by a man who claimed to keep them safe. No explanation, no context, just truth. A wave passed through the crowd. Some wept, some screamed, some just turned and walked to tower checkpoints with fists raised. Sector 1, Tower HQ, emergency lockdown. Alarms wailed, systems failing, streets out of control. Rika stood in Vane's office. He turned from the window. You leaked it. Rika didn't answer. You betrayed everything. I gave them a choice, she said. He raised his arm. A pulse pistol hissed from his sleeve, but Rika had her weapon out faster. Both froze. Shoot me, she said, but the city won't stop. Even if you silence Marcos, they'll burn your name into every wall. Vane's hand trembled, but he didn't fire. Instead, he lowered the pistol and walked toward the vault behind his desk. Then we make this war real. Sector 12, Outer Slums, Signal Barricade. Marcos and Naira stood with the last of their runners. Juan polished his pistols in silence. We exposed him, Ghost Boy said, but he hasn't stopped moving. Marcos nodded. Because Vane doesn't care about public favor. He's going to destroy the city before he gives it up. Naira checked her weapon. What's our next play? Marcos looked at the spine map. A blinking red indicator lit up on the outskirts of the city. The tower's black site core. Juan whistled. That's where they keep the worst of their toys. Marcos turned, gaze clear. It's also where they hid the rest of the Warden codes, including the failsafe. Ghost Boy's eyes widened. You're saying we can shut the tower down completely? Marcos nodded once. But we'll have to go through Vane to do it. Tower black site, internal lift, minutes later. Darius Vane descended into darkness. He opened a steel drawer lined with frost. Inside, his old armor, the first riot gear, the black mask. He reached in, pulled out his final tool. A small metallic disc etched with a single phrase. Echo Null Protocol Absolute. Act 3, Embers and Kings. Section 3, The Ember Crown. Sector 0, Tower Black Site Perimeter, midnight. The ground rumbled beneath New Aurora's skin. The final lock had clicked. A single message pulsed across all rebel comms. This is Warden Reyes. Final gate opens at dawn. One shot, no reset. Thousands saw it and walked ... They came not as a mob, but as a tide. Construction workers in yellow vests, teachers with chalk-stained sleeves, burned-out medics in duct-tape coats, ex-gang lookouts perched on rooftops, radioing enemy positions to rebel nodes. The tower knew war was coming, but it wasn't ready for everyone. Black site core, exterior wall. Marcos Reyes stood at the front of the march. His broken wrist was strapped tight under riot cloth. The warden badge, split-scorched, now glowed faintly as the spine pumped resonance through it. The city was alive, synced to him like breath. To his left, Naira, shotgun loaded, one leg bound with a blood-stained tourniquet. To his right, Juan shot Morales, chewing on a matchstick, pistols holstered and coat fluttering in the breeze like a cape made of defiance. Behind them, chaos with direction. The last free cells, the final signal, an army with no flag, just a cause. Marcos looked ahead. The tower's final gate loomed, untouched by time, unmoved by fire, fortified, shielded, wired, but even stone cracks under thunder. He raised the badge. "We don't win with noise," Marcos called. "We win with echoes." Then he walked, straight toward the gate, inside the black site, control hall. Darius Vane stood in full armor, face concealed behind the iconic black riot mask of the earliest tower purges. On his chest, the old tower sigil. Beneath it, fused to the armor's core, a kill code detonator. He placed the final Echo Null disk into the terminal. An AI voice spoke. "Activating Null Protocol, citywide scramble, all Echo systems to be destroyed." A single confirmation screen blinked. "Proceed?" Vane waited, then reached for the key. But something stopped him. A voice. No tech, no feed. Just memory. Emilio Reyes, in the dark. "You want silence so badly, Darius? Maybe you should listen to yourself first." Exterior. Battle commences. Explosions ripped through the outer barricades. Drones fell in waves, hacked by rebel netrunners. Gunfire traded on rooftops. Smoke thickened across the plaza. Marcos, Juan, and Nira pushed forward through broken glass and automated defenses. Screams echoed off the walls, but the city didn't falter. Marcos felt it. The hum. The echo burning hot underfoot, like wires alive with memory. They breached the main door, and then the Nulls came. A dozen of them. Silent. Efficient. Marcos fought with his father's baton, dodging their attacks like wind through buildings. He didn't strike with rage. He struck with rhythm. Each motion a note in a song the tower forgot how to sing. Juan was a storm, twin pistols dancing, ducking, leaping from railing to stair to second-story platform. Nira took 3 shots and still fired, and one by one, the Nulls fell, until only one remained. Marcos turned, chest heaving, and Vane stepped from the smoke. No words, just war, the duel, tower's heart. The hall was ancient, a collapsed civic chamber from when the tower had been city hall. Marcos and Vane circled, no crowd, no army, just 2 names at the end of a story. "You killed him," Marcos said. "You killed my father because he was right." Vane's voice hissed behind the mask. He was weak. He believed in a world that never existed. "I gave people order, safety. You gave them dreams. You gave them cages." They clashed. Marcos's baton met Vane's riot blade, a brutal serrated edge forged for suppression, not defense. Steel screamed. Marcos moved like smoke, striking low, fast. Vane countered with brute force, trying to crush him under weight and momentum. Every blow vibrated through Marcos's bones. His wrist ached, his legs burned, but he kept moving. The echo screamed beneath his feet, and then it turned calm, not gone. Clear, like the city had held its breath, and now exhaled. Marcos dropped into a stance he didn't know he remembered. Warden technique. The old way, his father's way. He struck once, twice, faint, real. Vane stumbled. Marcos swept low, drove the baton into the armor's joint. Sparks. Then the detonator blinked red. Vane roared, "If I fall, the whole system dies." Marcos didn't hesitate. He stepped forward and pressed the badge into the detonator core. Then fall with it. Light burst outward. Not a bomb, not fire, but a surge. A pulse. The badge overrode the command. The spine reacted, and Vane's armor, his command core, collapsed under the feedback. He fell, still. Marcos stood over him, breathing. The war was over. Sector 1, 3 days later. The tower gates were open. Signal workers dismantled surveillance drones. Citizens painted over propaganda. Mural walls bloomed. Schools reopened. Districts reconnected. The internet was reborn outside tower control. The warden badge was no longer hidden. It was worn, passed, held in markets and bus terminals and rooftop gatherings like a piece of sacred steel. Marcos stood on the civic bridge. The city moved below. not in panic, in rhythm. He spoke into a simple broadcast mic. No filters. My name is Marcos Reyes. I'm not your leader. I'm not your savior. I'm your neighbor, your runner. The city is yours now, and it listens when you walk. Make it echo. He stepped back. Juan leaned against the rail. Nice speech. Stole it from Vega, Marcos said. She'd approve. They looked over the city, alive, tired, rebuilding. But finally, free, final scene. Rooftop, Sector 12. A child played with an old cracked phone. The screen flickered, and from it softly, a ghost voice. Emilio Reyes. If you're hearing this, it means the light is still burning. Fade to black. End.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Storytime with Papa Owl. If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe.